Hello everyone. We have Sachin, good friend and very fun guy.
I think the formula for success is don't die. Right? Just survive. But that
I
product
don't know like
actually,
how much similarity is there. I always think technology was great.
mothership is a profitable business. How can we run out of cash? We realized that things are not good. And that is when we said, okay, we need to look back again, had to take tough calls. We were minus 2 crore in bank at one stage. If you look at the IT buyer in UAE, they did not have a lot of respect for Indian IT. India probably is the biggest opportunity in emerging markets. And then I look at it in three clusters, Suresh: Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Africa.
Southeast Asia, Middle East and
And
Africa.
Africa. Remember, in mathematics, we used to have this statement called necessary but not sufficient. So, a product is necessary but not sufficient for you to succeed in these markets.
Hello everyone. Welcome to SaaSBoomi's Founders Deep Dive. I think we have something phenomenal this show. We have Sachin, good friend, and I enjoyed working with him in many occasions during SaaSBoomi sessions, and he's a very fun guy. And he also has a very fun personality, look and feel with all the hairdos and everything. So welcome to the show, Sachin. Wonderful having you. Seriously, I am going to really have fun this
Oh,
session.
Suresh, I've been a big fan of the podcast. Of course, anything SaaSBoomi does is impactful, and very happy to be here to share what I've learned, and of course, have a conversation with a very good friend. Thank you.
So thank you. So, Sachin, just to give you some background, we sort of tweaked this session a little bit. We instead of going all over the founder's journey, we'll probably do two solid pieces and go deep, right? As the rather than go broad. One of the things I noticed is that your career and my career has a very close resemblance in the sense. I worked for like 3-4 years in corporate, and then after that I started my entrepreneurial journey around the same time,
Yeah,
right? Like I started in 2003, 2004,
exactly the same time.
exactly the same time. And then we are all both of us are in this long journey, and I think we
Yeah.
have I'm pretty much sure one of the reasons why we sync up a lot is that we have a lot of similarities in experience and and what is this.
Oh, I remember the Orangescape days really well. We used to look up. I was a big fan of framework-based systems. I think Orangescape was one of the early ones, and then what you did with Kissflow was phenomenal. I think that was a pivot that I was a fan of, and we know that in long journeys you have to change, you have to adjust, and there are very few such long journeys to observe in India. Right, you can count them on fingers. So yeah,
I'm really happy to hear that. See, there is no formula for success, unfortunately, right? Like if only there was one formula for success, all of us could simply copy that and get to that. But one thing I personally liked is there is always a formula for happiness, though. The formula for success is actually defined by external people, unfortunately, right? And you got to keep and these external people keep changing their success goalpost. Like you get $1 million and then they'll say, you know what, no, you got to go now 10 million. And then you do 10 million, they'll say, no, this you have to go to 100 million. Then you
Hmm.
have to go like IPO, or then you have to go to $1 billion, right? So this formula for success is constantly changing, but the formula for happiness is very internal,
Yeah.
right? It's very internal, and you don't need anybody else's approval to define what your happiness boundaries are or
Yeah.
goals are. And that actually helped me keep going at what I'm doing, and I really enjoy doing it. There are very few times in my entire entrepreneurial journey, which is like close to 20 years now, where I've felt like very down, like that will be last for 2 days or 3 days,
Yeah.
and that itself happened only maybe for 3 times or 4 times. That's about
Hmm.
it. Right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And the rest of the entire, which is like what, 365 days into 10, which is like 3650 days into 2, which is roughly 77,200 days of entrepreneurial journey, right?
Pretty good hit rate.
I think maybe entirely 20 days I would have been like down.
Down. Hmm.
And rest of the time I was having totally very happy about it.
Yeah.
Everything single thing I've done till now is felt very very happy. I see the same thing when I see in you. Why
Yeah.
don't you talk a little bit about it and then we'll go to the two
So,
topics.
a lot of people ask me that, how are you still at it? And I remember a conversation with Girish once, Girish of Freshworks. This was at a SaaSBoomi party, I think at Pallav's place only. And I said that, the reason when we started Drishti, that was the name of the company in 2003, the reason actually has stayed the same. I'll tell you a little bit about the background, right? So I graduated in 2001. Me, Vishal, Nayan, we were the co-founders at Drishti. And at that time, especially coming out of an IIT, there used to be a few career options. There were stereotypes, right? So you go to MS PhD or you apply for MBAs, or actually there was another stereotype there that if you're from UP and Bihar, you will go for IAS. We were saying, why India is not delivering products, right? So we were fascinated by, at that time, what Microsoft was doing, what IBM was doing. We understood what Steve Jobs has done. And we used to have this joke that, okay, tell me top five Indian companies in IT. And everybody used to say Switch, right? Satyam, Wipro, Infosys, TCS, HCL. Then we used to say, okay, tell top five global companies. People used to say HP, IBM, Apple, Oracle, Microsoft. They tell us the difference. And it took a lot of time for people to realize what we are saying, that everybody there was a product company and here was a services company. And then we used to give another analogy. If you're building a house, you need two people, a contractor and an architect. What would you like to become? So everybody said architect, because the architect would imagine and then contractor would execute. And then we said, why then everybody is busy becoming a contractor in India, right? Let's try becoming architects. There are these issues in your life, right, that don't, you want to stay awake thinking about them. So we spoke to professors in our college, we spoke to senior members in the industry, and everybody said, maybe risk aversion, we don't know. Yeah, all the ingredients are there. So nobody was giving us like a sure shot answer. So then we said, okay, let's start. We will know the answer either ways. Either we would have been successful and we'll answer it, or we will know why somebody is not able to deliver it. Now it is not just about my company, right? Even association with SaaSBoomi and working with other entrepreneurs, the idea is still the same. Yeah? Why can't India deliver world class companies now? And I think that is one theme that has stayed with me, which has motivated me. The first 13 years, I think, yeah, 12, 13 years was bootstrapped. So then you were talking about formula for success, right? Me and Shiv could joke about it sometimes. I think the formula for success is don't die, right? Just survive. If you are surviving long enough, you'll be successful in, sort of the
Eventually,
external.
yeah,
Compounding will hit at some point of time, right?
definitely,
So
definitely.
if you
That's
survive,
what I
you're good.
realized. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
yeah,
actually,
that has stayed
I
with
was
me.
I was actually getting goosebumps. You know why? I'll tell you. The two things I said, exactly the same thing, man. I'll tell you the two exact things I used to say when we started. I had my mentor, and we were talking when we started. Hey, like, how do we create like a global product company out of India, right? And so our original name for Orangescape was just Orange.
Hmm. Okay, I know where it's coming from.
Yeah, so it was just Orange, okay. And but there was Orange Telecom,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they came, and we had issues with that, and we called it Orange Cave for whatever reason. And we had
Hmm.
Orange is also, California is also the land of
Yeah,
orange, right? So, and Orange is also like a Tamil name. I don't know,
yeah.
most of you people do not know that. So
Oh,
the original root word for orange is also Tamil word. It's
interesting.
also Sanskrit, also it's called Naranga or something in
Narangi,
Sanskrit.
yeah.
Yeah. So from there only, globally, the name Orange became Orange. Okay.
Interesting.
People didn't know that. So we actually had all these things thought through when we created the company. And then when I talk about the switch examples you said, I used to say, you know what? Hey, like you buy an air conditioner and there is someone comes and fixes it at home. Do you want to be the service guy who want to fix the air conditioner at home, or do you want this guy who want to make the air conditioner and the
Yeah.
TVs and the refrigerators, right?
Hmm.
The similar to the home example, it
Hmm.
is exactly the same way we thought about it, right? No, I because I think in the 2000s the country was vibing with this aspiration
Yeah,
of that inflection point to change the narrative of the company of the
yeah,
country,
yeah,
meaning from all parts of the country. I'm in down south and you are in top north,
yeah,
right? And to the entire stretch of this country, we were all, reimagining a new India
yeah,
where
yeah.
we
I
trans.
remember my conversations in campus, and campus are a wonderful sort of sample set for the whole country, right? So we had lots of folks from Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore, the Western Belt. So the conversations everywhere was India has arrived, right? So there was this
Time for
upbeatness in
products.
all
The time for
conversations.
products for India has arrived.
Yeah, and then everybody was talking products. And
Yeah,
I think internet has got something to do with Suresh. I think the
exactly.
exposure prior to that was only books, which takes a
See,
lot of effort,
it
but
is
you were
actually a
getting access to
democratization
YouTube.
of information and knowledge that
Yeah,
happened through internet,
you
right?
could actually get stories and stories that
Yeah,
intrigue you. You were exposed to more stories, and now for example, today's kids are exposed to even more stories. So
story.
so then the right environment will flourish it. I think that is what is going to happen. So very bullish on India.
Yeah, yeah, super, yeah. Actually, let's switch gears and go into one of the things, part of Ameo, Drishti. You also did inside sales box. You also went from small ticket items to large ticket items, especially in the emerging markets. So the India B2B SaaS ecosystem is primarily built around horizontal SMB SaaS. But then a lot of these horizontal SMB SaaS, except for Zoho, most of them have transitioned from being an SMB SaaS into go went up market, including Freshworks and everybody, right? So, but I think you are one of those pioneers who consciously made that switch. I think even I actually did it little later, but it'll be good to understand what was your thought process, what were you selling initially, at what point did you decide? Like I had as this question, somebody was asking me. We'll probably explore the answers for those things. Like, hey, if you're selling $25,000 deals easily during inside sales model, why wouldn't you simply scale the $25,000 ticket sizes? And because the cost is less, you don't need to hire the feet on street sales. And why would you want to go away from $25,000 deals and sales cycles are less than 3 months to selling enterprise is going to be like 6 to 9 months, and then you need people who are sitting on the feet on street or in market and stuff like that, and it's going to be expensive.
There are few ways we can address this, but let's understand what we have been selling. And I think the first 10 years, Suresh, I have no shame in saying that we were reacting. So the first product actually came out back in 2006, and that was what we call a dialer, which is used in a contact center to make automated outbound calls, and it was not even close to SaaS. Our competition was proprietary hardware, and we built it on a Linux box, right? So that was sort of the insight that you don't need proprietary hardware to run such applications. And there used to be dialogic cards, and I think there were some boxes from Avaya Cisco that were required to run such solution. We said you could actually run everything off one enterprise grade Linux server. Now, the first uptake happened for us in mom and pop BPOs. And incidentally, at that time, India, the BPOs that were calling into US and UK were mushrooming. So we were able to position we used to call it tax dialer at that time, DACX dialer. If only somebody had taught me marketing at that time. But
I
but
know,
that
I
product
know like
actually,
how much similarity is there. I always think technology was great. Later I realized, if only I knew marketing was better than technology, I would have probably taken.
yeah. But that product got us our first $1 million like very, very fast. We were selling in the north, and then I think I got an opportunity to come to Bangalore, and there was an Australia BPO in Bangalore. And we set up an office there. So we were just hiring, and what you call as product market fit, right? That magic happened that suddenly everybody that you speak to in that segment requires that solution, and they just come to negotiation table, and you quickly close the deal. And this was doing well. I think the insight, we spoke to a few investors at that time. I still remember our conversations with Helion. Helion was started by folks who had just sold Daksh to IBM. Daksh was a very large BPO. And they said, why only BPOs? I think enterprise would be a much larger market. And young entrepreneurs, we were like super confident. We said, no, BPO is the segment to be in. We are selling there like hotcakes. And he said, you will hit a ceiling because the TAM is not that big. And we said, these are all fancy words. We should be busy with what we are doing.
They don't have a clue.
They don't have a clue, right? However, we started we started saying we should do the math, right? Maybe not today, but in 2 years, 3 years, what if they are right? And we did the math, and they were actually very, very right. So if we had continued, then we would have hit the saturation on the market. So we did two things. Instead of a dialer, we made the product into a complete contact center solution, and that is when Ameyo was born. The name Ameyo was the name of the product at that time, 2008, 2009. And we were very lucky, Suresh, that at that time the consumer side market was very, very buzzing, right? So we had Pepper Tap, Meru, Urban Clap, right? These companies were just starting to happen. And these people liked buying from us because we were talking their language. They didn't like talking to system integrators, right? Who were not speaking their language. We were engineers who were whiteboarding and said, here is how we can do the solution. I remember my conversations with Abhiraj, who's the founder of Urban Clap. So that segment then became, after BPO, that segment, what we call today as consumer tech, became a large segment for Ameyo. And we were sort of market leaders there. We used to track every company that is getting funding, and we basically grew with them. Ola, the deal happened I remember, in a basement kind of scene, and they were just scaling very, very fast, and this helped us scale. And interestingly, around the same time, the international exposure started happening. So 2008, 2009, Philippines started happening for us because that was the next BPO destination. So we set up an entity in the Philippines, set up a local team there. From Philippines, there were linkages into Malaysia. So somebody from Malaysia said, we also want this. And again, I'm very shamelessly acknowledging we were just reacting, right? If I had to do this all over again, I would plan it. But we didn't have information. We were just busy serving what was coming to us and saying, okay, what is the next segment we are serving? What is the next segment we are serving? And international also started growing. Consumer tech enterprise started growing. I think our first real, what people call enterprise customer, happened in 2008, 2009. There's a company called Motilal Oswal Securities. It's now a very large wealth management firm in India, and they had a vision of digitization. They're still our customer today, right? They still use our on-prem system. And then we started realizing that, I think enterprise would be larger. They have larger budgets because the percentage spent on IT is very small, right? For a bank, 2%, 3%, 5% of their revenue spent on IT is nothing. But BPO was spending 30% of their top line, right? So BPOs were extremely cautious of cost, whereas enterprise IT wanted productivity, efficiency. They were experimenting with ideas, and that is when we said we should focus on mid to large enterprise. Right, there are more budgets, there is more value that we can bring on the table, and hence, I think we'll also grow faster. That was the thought. So these were some of the choices. Now there are two more choices, right? The first one was a FOMO. Around that time, we started having a feeling that we are going to be a lifestyle business because everybody was telling us so. And we should do something in SaaS. We were still primarily on prem, and this was not because we couldn't shift things to cloud. The regulatory environment in India didn't allow us because you can't terminate a telephone line into the cloud. Telephone line has to be, terminated on prem. And we were thinking alternate architectures on how we can do this in subscription, and we were forced to think that because the whole ecosystem said if you're not SaaS, you're dead. And that is when Inside Sales Box happened, right? So then I said, if you're doing SaaS, then let's go US, because everybody was doing US. And we raised capital at that time. First time we raised capital, 2000. We were profitable, everything was good. We said, if you want to do US, then we'll need a little bit deeper pockets. And we raised about $5 million, set up a separate group. I led that group, and first we called it Tech. So we were figuring out. And then I went to a HubSpot event called Inbound, first time in Boston, and that was my first exposure to marketing. I said, "Oh man, okay, we don't know anything." Then I said, "We're not gonna call it Texo." I registered a domain called Texo.cc. Can you believe it? Then I then I learned that inside sales or sales development is an interesting space. By the way, around that time, Sales Loft and Outreach were just happening, pre-Series A. the space was interesting, and we could use our current code base of Ameyo and accelerate the GTM, and we launched Inside Sales Box. That I still believe is one of the best products that I have personally done. Completely born on the cloud, self-serve, extreme effort on UX, packaged, works out of the box. But I think that is when we also realize our biggest mistakes. So cost of acquisition in US was really high, right? Every time I sign a customer, the first year revenue would be cost of acquisition, roughly. And those were models that people said, yeah, if your first year revenue is equal to CAC and you can retain a customer for 3 years, that's three times LTV to CAC, everything should work. And somehow we were not okay saying, why are we burning money to acquire customers while at the same time, and Suresh, this was a revelation for us. We closed a deal with HDFC Bank, a couple of $1 million. Somebody from Mongolia sent a inbound lead to us. We validated this was CTO of a telco. And we are saying, okay, at one end, you have these multi-million dollar deals that you can sign. And on the other hand, for $1 million ARR, you are struggling, right? You can see it happening over 1 year, 2 year. And we said, is it just because everybody is saying go US, go SaaS, we are doing it? Then I think the final trigger came that while I was focused on the inside sales box business, the mothership business started shaking. We did some leadership hires there, and that was not working well. Then our head of finance said, "We will run out of cash in 6 months." We have never heard this. So he said, "Are you serious? Mothership is a profitable business. How can we run out of cash?" We realized that things are not good, and that is when we said, "Okay, we need to group back again." Had to take tough calls. We were minus 2 crore in bank at one stage, and from there to I think 50-55 crore in bank in 3 years, only focusing on large enterprise, right? And that around that time is when I met Shipku. So there were 2-3 learnings that I have, Suresh. It will change at some time, but I don't think there is a SMB SaaS play in emerging geographies still, right? But if you're starting fresh, observe whether your market is ripe for, are they actually valuing productivity coming out of the software or
I
not?
want to little bit stop there. See, I think there is a market opportunity in SMB SaaS, but there is no unit economics to
Yeah,
address
it
that.
requires field sales still, right? They still ask you to come to office.
Yeah. So that is the
Uh,
problem. The need
yeah,
is there. Everybody is like, for example,
absolutely.
a lot of people come and pitch me, "Hey, I'm trying to do this marketing, digital marketing for SMB guys." And then I basically tell them, "Hey, if you set up an SMB digital marketing team, it's going to take like 2.5, 3 lakhs a month. Like an SMB guy, will he spend just for the team like two and a half,
Correct.
3 lakhs? This is the worst case, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And there is no economics for him to do. He's expecting something to happen in 50,000. He'll
yeah,
pay flat 50,000,
yeah.
and we may have to supposed to make margins of 30% margin on
So
it, which
hard.
means
Yeah, I mean, it has to be completely self-serve, low touch, and I
yeah,
think, the way that we get disrupted is you don't bundle it as pure software, but bring in a little bit of fintech. Uh, Give them the software for free, but latch on to the fintech. I think that is how it will get solved first,
something like
then
that.
pure
Something
package
like that.
software.
Yeah. So I think we talked about it, right? So the reason why a lot of companies in India who started with SMB and then moved up market is because, well, the market is quite large and the opportunity is real, but the unit economics to service that market is not there.
Yeah,
And because these companies expect the same in-person kind of experience, give us some insights into this transition. Like, for example, when you talk about emerging markets, let's be specific and talk about what are those countries we are talking about. India, of
sure.
course, will be one of the emerging. We cannot leave out India in the emerging markets because
Yeah,
it's the
yeah, yeah.
largest
India is the
population.
biggest. India probably is the biggest opportunity in emerging markets. And then I look at it in three clusters, Suresh:
Hmm.
Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Africa.
Southeast Asia, Middle East, and
And
Africa.
Africa.
So
And
basically, MEA, ISIA, and India.
yeah, yeah.
So will you also
MENA
put?
is a better categorization because North Africa behaves like Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia will behave very similar to, let's say, a Kuwait, Qatar, or,
Yeah.
and then amongst these markets, the most the most that perform for us, and I would recommend folks to look at those markets: Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines. Those are good markets. Then in MENA, Saudi Arabia and UAE, of course, are the biggest. Then Qatar, Kuwait, those are very good markets. And then in Africa, South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, those are the three largest. But I myself traveled to about 54 countries for work, right? So Zambia, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, we would have banking customers. I have a telco customer in Somaliland. We have never been there. Somebody brought us and a great deal, right? This is a telco, the largest telco in that country, and their contact center is running on our platform. So there are pockets of opportunities if you're a horizontal play and you can serve banks, telcos, insurance companies. For example, what happened to India in late 80s, 90s, right? From public sector to private sector, large groups setting up banks, setting up teams to grow. So in 20 years, they will see what India has seen, right? So
Now that you understand all this, but in this we don't you don't put in New Zealand and Australia in
no, we've tried a couple of times. I think the emotions there are a little different from some of these countries, and we were mostly driven through channel partners, system integration partners. I think Japan and Australia are more mature in terms of their adoption, and it will require a little different GTM, and it's
yeah,
a little more expensive also. So it's better
yeah.
if you want to do these countries, then you set up base there, have a couple of folks there is definitely needed.
Is emerging markets is one common behavior, or are there nuances in these three regions which the founders who are going after emerging markets? And
Yeah.
also it will be good to know, when you say emerging markets, what is the ticket size we are talking about? Because the enterprise US team, for example, for us, mentally feels down if they deal with anything less than 100K.
Yeah.
If they think like they're dealing with the ticket size of less than 100K, they feel it's like inferior to their skill set. Okay.
So
Now,
yeah,
no, so the enterprise US teams cut off ticket sizes like 100K. Although they're doing like 70K, 80K sometimes, they see like it's eventually going to go to like 200K, right? But what is that range in these
sure.
markets, and what are the nuances for these three regions?
So first of all, let's understand the nuances. People use this term called moat. I think the emerging market moat is that you already have presence because it is not three markets. It's actually 45 markets, which means that you have to crack them one by one. Each country has their own nuance. Once you are in the market, you will continue to reap benefits, but it's hard work to enter, right? So that is why it has taken so much time. And if you'll see anybody who has cracked whole of GCC, whole of Africa, it takes good 5 7 years for you to sort of cover the market. I don't think there is a shortcut to do that. The nuances, pricing varies in these three markets. GTM slightly varies. So I think the maximum value, and a very good thumb rule for this is just look at the salaries that folks have in those markets. For example, Saudi Arabia will probably pay the maximum value because the people cost there is really really high. It's ultimately the enterprise software is either helping you do more sale or saving money for you, right? In both cases, you can draw a parallel on, am I doing work of two additional people or am I saving two people, right? If you can do that, then the maximum value is in Middle East, then Southeast Asia, and then India. Now, Africa is a different ballgame. You can actually have very high value because that market is underserved. People there are CIOs there are extremely hungry to know, and if you can honestly go educate, they will realize the benefits and you become a partner of choice. And Suresh, I would want our viewers to understand that Exotel, which is the company now, we are also a little different in terms of business, right? So there is a SaaS element and then there is a consumption element. Now, messaging and voice that we bundle with our offering, the gross margins are a little lower, but the values are really, really high. So just to give you some idea, the largest deals that we would have in India today would be like 3 crore, 4 crore a month, right? So 30 crore ARR. 30 crore ARR is like $4 million ACV in India, right? So there are larger deals. In terms of ACV for pure SaaS, I think anything around 40, 50K is where it would start. Average would be around 65, 60-65K, and the largest deal, as I said, could be really large, right? Like $4 million ACV also exists. But anything below 30K, I would not call enterprise in emerging geographies. So 30K would be my cutoff. If your US team has a cutoff of 100K, 30K would be a cutoff in our markets.
So 30K, meaning broadly in all the three markets.
Broadly in all the three markets, in India, you would have more 30K deals, but you'll also have a $4 million deal. The variation in India is really large because you have very large companies and you have
Very.
mid-sized enterprise also. But in Saudi Arabia, in UAE, you will have more 50K, 60K deals, and they would stay in a range.
Yeah. But one thing I wanted to understand, see, initially when we launched our enterprise go to market, we picked Dubai as our first launch segment for two reasons. Somehow intuitively, I assume the cost structure is lesser in Dubai, and also they might pay a little bit similar to like they have the European products. Like they think more like the British guys are there most of the time, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
and and also they are closer to India
Yeah.
time zone wise. Plus they have a high respect for India. India is seen as like a India brand
Yeah.
is good, right? They don't think India is cheap because of tech. But I actually, meaning I wanted to understand your view. What is your first two questions here? One is,
Hmm.
do you think like going after enterprise markets, like Dubai is a good launch pad? First question. The second question is, to my surprise, the Dubai salaries are actually quite expensive. Actually,
Yeah.
I was initially thought it might not be that expensive. It's actually quite expensive, and it is coming closer to US salaries.
I don't know what was your experience, but Saudi, Qatar, Kuwait in the early days did much better for us than UAE. And I was always surprised at why UAE is not clicking for us. And I have a theory for that. If you see the buyers in UAE, you have folks who have been there for 10, 15 years, mostly from the India IT space, right? If you look at the IT buyer in UAE, they did not have a lot of respect for Indian IT, right? They did not think that India is the same brand, which is changing now, which is changing because people have started believing in the India story. So, in fact, it was counterproductive because we had so many Indians in UAE that Indian companies, when they went, he said, "Yeah, we know how software is built in India. You can't be that good, right?" So, having said that, after 15 years of trying, today UAE is my fastest growing segment, and we are doing really large deals because of the Exotel Ameyo merger. We were able to launch pure cloud there. So my first 5 million is going to happen out of Dubai now. Now, advice for new entrepreneurs: Dubai also has a buzzing startup ecosystem. Would strongly recommend for the region have one thread in Dubai and one thread in Saudi, and figure out, because Saudi also is investing a lot and somehow they compete with Dubai. So if your HQ is in Dubai, they don't like it. But these are the two markets in the GCC that that one should look at. Now on salaries, if you go to Naukri Dubai and you find people who have been in that market for 10 years, the salaries are still low. It is the Indian startups who are sending people to Dubai. The salaries of sales, salary of delivery folks is really high, obscenely high. So I don't know why this dichotomy exists. When I looked at the local salaries, and I'm talking about telco enterprise salespeople versus an Indian startup sales guy, it's twice or thrice for the Indian startup sales guy. So I think we've got it slightly wrong because we want to do it fast.
But actually, when we are trying to hire from some of our competition, right? Even their salaries are maybe because it's a into US companies. Maybe they are just
Yeah.
trying to do something like that.
No, Suresh, I have hired an international, and my realization is if they are being given expat salaries,
Hmm.
which means people from outside are coming in, especially for this job, the salaries are very high. But there are lots of folks who are based in Dubai, have families there, have been there for 10, 15 years. The salaries will be, you will see, clear difference, but the quality is also a little different. But two times, three times, if your GTM and time to market justifies it, why not? But that's a dichotomy I've observed in Dubai very clearly.
Okay, there are two questions I want to ask. There is this thread that's going on in Twitter around. what is the per employee contribution of of a particular SaaS company in per employee contribution, right? ARR. Look at Indian companies are doing like 30 40K
Hmm.
or something like that, right? Versus US
I
companies are,
stopped looking at that metric long time back, by the way. I mean, it's an
yeah.
interesting mathematical
But
discussion,
I
but
think there is some
yeah.
connection to this session, right? I wanted to ask you, like, your view. What is the team composition you see being different in emerging market enterprise sales, which is different from if you have to do like a developed market like America or Europe?
Hmm.
One. Second, related to team composition is in, especially in the GCC market, do you need, like, for example, some expats who can talk to some expats and some maybe Arabic? Do we need to have this multicultural GTM team to really succeed? Coincidentally, we seem to have it in naturally in Kissflow. We ended up getting one person who's actually an Irish and one person is from African background and one guy who speaks Arabic and stuff like that. It's just like just naturally happened. But I wanted to know like how.
So I observed this in Mauritius, by the way. Mauritius is a very interesting example. You have the Indian background, you have the French background, and then they also have this very large population which is Bhojpuri speaking, interestingly. And they used to say French will buy from French, Indian will buy from Indian. It makes it a little easy to have the initial conversations, but I don't think it matters a lot in your SDR or business development, whatever you call it, right? The folks who are doing the front ending, and you can use local partners for that, right? So choose a couple of partners who have a Jordanian, an Egyptian for the Arabic, a couple of Indians. Dubai has all kinds of people, right? So yes, it helps you open the doors. Like, for example, if you know somebody European and a lot of Brits are there, you can get conversations very easily. And we actually have done for Ameyo and Exotel. It has been a lot of hard work. We went through the SDR outbound motion, and we were setting up appointments, sitting in India. Then somebody was visiting, and then qualifying whether there's an opportunity or not. But if one can afford it, it is best to have local teams which can represent, because that will accelerate the GTM a little bit. But I don't think it's a necessary thing.
Is see, people keep telling me in Mia, in all, generally in relation in emerging markets in general, and even in India, right? People say, you know what, it's a relationship driven market. It's not purely based on product. Like in the US, it's purely based on product, right? Because the
Yeah.
US is so big. Like, even enterprises are now doing inbound, right? They just Google and find a website and put an inquiry and then come ask you to do a demo, and if they like it, they buy it. And we have sold to some 600 enterprise customers without meeting them, even one meeting in person, right? Is this true?
First of all, a strong proponent of in-person relationship, especially for enterprise. Remember, in mathematics, we used to have this statement called necessary but not sufficient. So a product is necessary but not sufficient for you to succeed in these markets. These markets have there's an inherent fear, Suresh. So how do you build that trust? Either your brand inculcates trust, right? So I think the joke about IBM that nobody gets fired for buying IBM should be true for our kind of markets, right? They want to play it safe. That my job, I'm taking that call. So the only other alternative is they can trust you and say, yeah, Suresh will be there if something goes wrong. And hence, the sales folks, pre-sales folks, delivery folks that you're putting in front of the customer, they should inculcate that confidence that we'll be there. And when I say we, our brand will be there and I'll be there, right? Unless you do that, the it's not easy to get the first few customers. Also, Suresh, in enterprise sales, you would have observed it, right? These are not like I have a requirement, I go buy quickly. You start having a conversation 1 year prior on this is a problem I will invest in. Then there is a budgeting exercise that happens. Then maybe something like an RFP will come out. If you are entering at the RFP stage, you are already out. RFP has been spec for someone, right? So you need to be involved in person, educating, conversing very early days if you want to do enterprise deals.
So which essentially means the enterprise go to market play is a solid 2 years of laying foundation in every
Yeah,
market.
yeah,
Because if you're educating somebody for 1 year and then putting the RFP, is going to happen in the
Absolutely.
next year budget.
That is why I'm saying it's a moat, right? If you have cracked all those markets and we have done it over last 15 years, it's not, let's say if somebody has a lot of capital and they still want to go and do business in these 40 countries, it's going to be still 2 years, a lot of time, a lot of money, and still it may not succeed, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's a moat. If you establish it, you're there for good. If you win that trust, you're there for good.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I hope the audience are listening to this. I wanted to not lose the thread and go deeper into this one. The natural next question that comes to is, how do you generate the pipeline? See, the traditional enterprise go to market seems to be not having a clear marketing function and a sales function, and seems to be everything sales centric, which is like
Mm.
the sales guys generate their own pipeline, they have their own SDRs, their own BDRs, they have the relationships, they have their own partner relationships, and then build everything and then go sell and then come back. But I would love to. I have a slightly different view, or rather, we have done it slightly differently in Kispo. Maybe I can also share about it. But
Sure.
love to understand what is your take on it. What is
Hmm.
the pipeline generation model? Is it very marketing centric, or is it like clubbed with the sales, or is it like a hybrid? Would love to understand this.
I think we would have experimented with every possible structure that's out there. There are a few insights that I have, which I now follow as principles. So, broadly, three channels, Suresh. One is the inbound marketing, which is basically somebody discovering you online. And I just gave an example a while back that once CTO of a telecom in Mongolia filled a form on our website. And I just, my first question was, where is Mongolia? And then second question was, somebody please validate if he's actually the CTO. And as soon as we said, I said, okay, now figure out what is the visa process for Mongolia and let's just go land there. So the first is inbound. The second is the SDR outbound motion, where you select a certain set of accounts and you're reaching out. And the third is channel partners, right? Let's call these three channels. Now, for each segment, it's a different behavior. India consumer tech, 60-70% inbound for us. Large enterprise in India is SDR plus sales motion. I'll talk a lot about this because this is an area which I think I've experimented and learned a little bit. So SDR motion there worked really well for us. And the last is international, where intuitively everybody will think channel partners, but for a good portion of like 60-70% of our motion was SDR outbound. And even our partners used to say that, how could you sitting in India know about the market more than us, right? And today my partners complain, why are your SDRs not generating opportunities? And I would say, man, hold on. Actually, it's your responsibility. We were able to do it really well. So SDR outbound for enterprise has been the best motion for us. After that, in India, it will be inbound, and outside it will be channel partner. Now, on the SDR motion itself, I would not recommend it to be kept with sales. If you can afford, have an independent function. If not, put it as part of the demand function in marketing and have clear handoff and accountabilities. So define the what we call as SQL or ISQL. We call it ISQL, which is sales qualified lead given to sales, and then sales has to accept and reject. Have that handoff criteria nailed, and then run it like a clockwork machine, right? Just it can churn opportunities if you get that motion right, and you have to keep tweaking as the market changes. For us, international sales plus SDR is about 65-70%, and rest is marketing. For India, I think it's a 50-50 inbound and outbound because our brand is well known, right? 90% of the consumer tech is already using us. So, one final point on the SDR motion, as I said, if you put it as part of sales, they end up doing sort of what sales wants. And sales is very in the moment team, right? If they're happy, nothing will get done. If they're sad, they will suddenly say, okay, we need a lot of funnel, right? So I think you should keep it quite independent of sales, as independent as you can, but have that two in a box model, right? Two in a box means if the sales guy is succeeding, the SDR is also succeeding, something like that. Right? I've written a lot about this in an article, which we can, link to. There was a Bloom podcast, but this is perhaps the secret sauce for us for emerging market success. Last point, customer success sales, SDR, marketing, if you make them responsible, as you lower the number of accounts, Suresh. So let's say you are the account director, I'm the customer success guy, and we have an SDR, right? And whole universe that you and I have is 25 accounts, right? Then the amount of depth you get, because there's starvation, you can't do anything else, right? Here are the 20 accounts. You're not mapping 1%, 2%, but 10 people in those accounts, right party contacts keep. So I always believe that in enterprise motion, starvation, you can't be reacting only, which means whatever is coming I will react. No, here is a universe of 25 accounts. Either you say that nothing will happen in these 25 accounts, give me one account and I will give you one account again, but your universe will stay at 25 accounts. That's the latest that we are doing. We are reducing the number of accounts that we call as enterprise. In India, we used to have 7,500 enterprise accounts, then 2,500 enterprise accounts. Today, it's 600 enterprise accounts in India, right? And rest, everything for us is a different team reporting to the CEO. The sales doesn't bother. The enterprise sales team doesn't bother themselves with this.
Tell us deep, deeply about what does it really mean. Is it simply about picking up 25 accounts, mapping them, calling them, prospecting them, or what is the
So,
secret inside the
if you
secret?
have to call them once in 1 month, everything will be over, right? 1 month, you can call about 200 people and done. So, there are a lot of things that happen. For example, for the consumer tech segment, we keep a tab of whoever has raised Series A. It triggers and it becomes an account, and somebody will call. Then we keep a track of, let's say there are let's say there are 50 accounts, 20 accounts, and there are 200 people in those accounts that are useful to us. If any of them change roles or change jobs, that's a trigger for us. There is a lot of work to be done if you get these motions to be set up, right? Then there is very good collaboration that happens between marketing and SDR team. Marketing keeps doing these roundtables. And I remember, by the way, last time we were in Dubai, there was a Kiss Flow roundtable happening in the same hotel, and there was an Exotel roundtable happening in the same, right? So in some pretext, you're calling, having conversations with the right parties, giving them new insights on what is happening in the industry, what's happening in your product, presenting case studies, making customers speak. So you need to continuously keep engaging with the right parties with the right message. Remember that when they would buy or when the buying cycle will happen is not in your control. Your conviction should be that this account will require this solution and they don't have it today. Then it may take 6 months, 12 months, even 2 years for them to take a call that yes, this is a priority right now. Till such time, you should be top of the mind. That's how we think about it.
But if that is the case, right? How do they meet numbers? Because if they have only 25 accounts and some of them are going to be in education mode,
So, the
maybe
25 account analogy has happened for us. And oh, okay, one more big change that we have done, we have let go of this notion of hunting farming now,
Mhm.
right? So, essentially, if you and I are the account director and the customer success of those 20 accounts, all existing revenue is part of RKT, right? So let's say we did 100 crore this year from those 20 accounts. Can we do 130 crore next year from these accounts? That's the game that we are playing, right? There'll be some opportunities. There might be a little bit of churn also, right? So retention, increase, new departments, all those are motions that you and I figure out together that what is going to happen in those accounts. The 20 account thing, already about 5 to 10 of them would be customers of Exotel, right? So there is already a substantial base that has been built, and that is why only the growth has to be done, right? So if I'm at 100, let's say 30 has to be added. A lot of it is organic growth. Most Indian companies are growing by 15-20% at least, and then you add a little bit of 10 to 15% of new business, and that is how they meet the numbers. But growth of existing revenue is the target. Again, this is something that we can do at Exotel stage when we are at 400, 500 crore ARR. For a, if you're just setting up maybe a hunting structure, getting the first 10 accounts, and then a customer success structure which is flat, might work better. But once you have a substantial set of accounts already as your customers, the two in a box model works better.
What are the tools that your SDR, this outbound team uses for this whole purpose? Because the thing that you say, right, somebody changes the jobs, I get an alert, somebody gets a seed funding, I get an alert. Because, we can't keep monitoring as human beings, right? So you need to use a lot of tools and technologies and integrate all of them into a single CRM system.
Actually, there's a joke about this. So the first CRM that we used in Ameyo, there used to be a CRM called Sugar. I think there was a spin off into Suit CRM, which was open source. And we customized the hell out of Suit CRM and never bought any packaged product, right? Then I think 5 years back, we realized that we are actually doing exactly opposite of what we are selling in the market, right? How can homegrown tools outdo packaged products? And Salesforce happened for us, which I think was a blessing. So today, marketing, sales, SDR, customer success, support, everything is on Salesforce. So on the sales side, CPQ, on the RevOps, Tableau integrated into Salesforce. Marketing, actually a lot of tools, man. And team keeps changing. For example, there are trigger based where you get account triggers. There is a ABM tool. Then for databases, multiple databases from Lucia to ZoomInfo, wherever we can find right party contacts. And then the stuff that I was talking about, Suresh, we used to have a team called research team within the SDR function, and that was also sort of the training ground for people. So very young people following SOPs, basically scanning and then putting those triggers, and that also worked. LinkedIn is the source for most of these things, right? So we have LinkedIn subscription for most of the SDRs and research team and sales guys. That's the most expensive tool that we have.
Okay. Actually, the last topic I would like to touch, I don't think we will be able to go to the merger.
Second topic. Yeah.
Maybe we should do a part two, man, but we are still stuck in part one.
No worries.
In part one itself, the last topic I would like to talk about is marketing. What is working in marketing? Because see, for example, in the SMB mid-market segment when Kissflow used to operate, predominantly it was Google AdWords and stuff like
Yeah.
that, right? We kind of completely stopped it in because to scale Google AdWords to generate enterprise accounts is just not working.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a trigger I want to see it in your mind without putting answers in your mouth. I want
Sure.
to know what the answers are, which is
Sure.
what kind of marketing is working to generate pipeline for sales. We moved SDR function away from sales. We really felt that we asked the question, what is the KPI of SDR? Right? We asked the question, okay, their KPI is to generate pipeline. So which function owns pipeline as a KPI?
Hmm.
Yeah, we said, okay, marketing function owns pipeline. So because then what they can also give as input to SDRs is what we call as these warm inquiries, which are anonymous visitors coming from a company
Yeah.
into a website, which they're not ready to fill an inquiry. So all those warm leads, marketing is willing to give it to SDR because now they are part of their function,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
marketing is accountable for the demand pipeline. So I think we aligned that. So I think it's working really well. Coming back, as far as marketing concerned, what marketing activities are actually producing the successful pipeline in a cost-effective manner?
So,
Love that.
Suresh, over the years, the head of marketing, what is he or she responsible for? We've had various thoughts. I'll tell you what it has come to now. So, for example, we don't give a lot of weightage to pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
We actually say marketing source revenue or marketing source OB. Now we have even said marketing influenced OB and marketing influenced revenue, right?
What does OB mean? What is about
Or
OB?
OB is order book, which means,
Order
for
book.
example, if you put a $1 million ARR, that's an order, but when you actually realize it is the revenue,
Okay,
right?
I got it.
So there was one account in UAE, very large account, that our sales team was pursuing. This was an opportunity in the CRM, and it suddenly went cold. And this is like a $1.5 million ARR opportunity, right? I met them. There's an executive connect that has happened, and suddenly they've gone cold. Marketing got a roundtable done in UAE, and we got one guy from this account somehow to attend. And incidentally, in that same forum, his batchmate was also there, who was our existing customer. And these two hit it off. And the existing customer said, "Man, I love Exotel." And this guy said, "Oh, we were almost ruling them out, but we will bring them in again." Now, where do you attribute this opportunity? Right now, this is the reality of enterprise sales. Right, this is what is actually happening on the ground. So we do measure marketing sourced opportunities, and then we ask sales that you from your existing pipeline, tell us opportunities that you feel are getting a little weak, or you require management level connect, executive connect. You want to go after, you want to invest in those opportunities, even when there are opportunities. And then market will give a budget to marketing that you can spend some money on existing opportunities also. And if you are able to prove an engagement, like in this case, the guy came at the event and there was an engagement, then we will also attribute that to marketing source OB, marketing source revenue. Now, this is really complex. I don't think there are tools to do it in an automated manner. Ultimately, in enterprise, the role of marketing is going to be create more opportunities to engage. I want to call out, we earlier used to think of branded events, large events like Jitex, for example, as as where we should be. Now we are a strong believers of roundtables, focus roundtables, 10, 15, 10, 15 people from prospect, a couple of customers, and then leadership from this side. That is working the best for us in terms of channel in new acquisition. Get people from the same vertical, same function in a company to talk. I think they then discover problems that exist in the industry in those conversations, and at least have one customer who can who can validate that yes, this company can deliver. That is the best channel for enterprise today internationally. In India, interestingly, for Exotel, it's still inbound. Suresh, we get inbound from, I mean, even a HDSC Ergo will fill an inbound inquiry on Exotel. So I think that is because of the brand. The
Brand.
brand is really, really large.
The last 30 seconds for you to summarize and tell us emerging markets, go to market. What are the like 3 to 5 takeaways somebody should keep in mind if I'm a founder
Yeah.
going to attack this market? Just 3 to 5
So
takeaways.
first, don't just react. I think we could have chosen markets a little better. The order of markets, do a little bit of research, validation of the market before you double down on it. Second, don't start too many markets at the same time. Each market is going to take a lot of time and patience and effort. So maybe two markets at a time, max. So
Yeah.
each country would be a different market. So select with research. Don't start too many markets at the same time. Second, third, focus on your SDR motion and research. Don't spray and pray. Once you enter one segment, try and get to adjacencies faster rather than opening more verticals. Again, select is the formula here. I think ICP is a term that is talked about a lot, but have the validation on the ICP whether this segment has a problem. In UAE, it's real estate for me. In Saudi Arabia, it's insurance, right? So, yeah, I think those would be three rest. Don't listen to any ideas, including mine, as mantra. Figure out, validate, be an experimenter. That is the only way to grow. And
Yeah.
last, what we discovered: don't die, survive.
Don't die. And actually, also the one bit I wanted to add, reinforce what Sachin said. All we are giving you is anecdotal examples of what worked for us. I think it's each company is unique, and that's why startups are difficult to succeed because you have a unique. It's a different product, different value proposition, different ICP, different market. Everything is different, different pricing probably, different positioning, different way of articulating. So I think you got to take all these inputs and then do it. But then I think one thing which Sachin's talked about, you want to add to the list of takeaways is that it takes 2 years for you to set up a market and start seeing results. So if you can't pull out of the market after like 12 months, you haven't seen results. We have to invest more than 2 years in a particular market for you to see success in enterprise sales, because the first year you spend a foundation, second year is where you start filling up all your RFPs and codes and everything, and then you start seeing results after that. So with that, I want to end this part. Maybe hopefully it's only part one, part two, I don't know. I'll try and see if we can get the time from Sachin again to talk about the merger story of Exotel and Ameyo, and that's something that I'm equally thrilled to listen to. Wonderful, Sachin. I think this was phenomenal. I think I love it. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks a lot
you.
for
Thank
your
you so much,
time.
Suresh. I recommend everybody to listen to this at 1.5x. This is a long conversation. Lastly, Suresh, if I may, there is a program called SGX in SaaSBoomi that
Correct.
we run for startups which are around or sub 1 million, focusing on GTM and GTM focused problems. Cohort 5 is starting now. Keep a watch out for cohort 6. If you're a sub 1 million, that is when we do a deep dive on GTM for your company, and it's very, very valuable. So
Yeah.
do check
Yeah.
it
Just
out
to
if you, yeah.
just to be in short, SaaSBoomi is doing this growth SGX. It's
Yeah.
called Growth X. For companies who have found the product market fit, but less than
Yeah, less
1
than 1
million. That's
million
the sweet
and
spot.
want to scale the GTM.
Yeah,
So there are a lot of
scale.
companies who have taken advantage of the experience that founders like us have. Thank you,
Thank
Suresh.
you, Sachin.
It is always a pleasure to talk to you and looking forward to having more
Same here.
conversations.
Same here.
See
Same
ya.
here.
Bye.
Let's try and see if we can do the part two. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Cheers.